Sorry, I wanted to start recording. So, but we move on. Any comments, feel free to continue bringing it up. So ethics covers the following dilemmas. One is, thank you, Collins Kisiangani. This is a very unique name. I've only had it with another professor. So it requires a person with firm moral standards to do the right things. So there's a question of firmness in terms of moral standards, you know, because you might have a moral standards and you ask, what is the source of this moral standard? You might have a moral standard, but if it's not firm, you know, remember the story, the parable of where is your foundation? Parable of someone who built on sand, but someone else who built on a rock. So for you to wait to drive and you can move on, really requires someone with a very, very high moral standard. But ethics covers the following dilemmas, or we can call them ethical dilemmas. One, how to live a good life. Let me pose this question. Please respond on chat. What is a good life? What is a good life? But the other dilemma is our rights and responsibilities. So who determines what my right is? And my responsibility as well. You know, the language of right and wrong. Are there some words that you should not speak? Some words that should not be heard among Christians? And yet some words that if someone had, they would really ask, is this really the Christianity that people are supposed to emulate? The other thing is that what is good and what is bad. It's a moral decision. What one would see as good, someone else may think it's not really a very good idea. But let me go to the chat and see what is there. So how to live a good life? Rosiana says, I determine what a good life is. Anyone else on the four dilemmas? How to live a good life, our rights and responsibility. Ken says a good life is a happy life. Now someone else will ask you, so what is happiness? What is a happy life? How would you differentiate between happiness and joy? Please feel free to chat. Losiana says a good life is when you have a vision and God. That's nice. Good to get. Please keep bringing those responses. Then language of right and wrong. Please give feedback on this aspect as well. What is that language that would be viewed as language of right and wrong? So are there certain words, you know, should not be heard amongst us, you know? And let me ask you, and please answer please be real in your response. If you're working on a computer that is a desktop, you know, desktop, at some laptops, they call desktops too, because they can't keep charge. And lights go off immediately, and you are working on, say, something that is needed urgently. Lights just go off. What is the first word that comes from your mouth? Or you're watching a movie on TV, and lights just go off, and you are at that suspense. Or you are watching football for men. Watu wa Arsenal, Mungu awahurumie sana, you know, and the lights just go off. What is that thing that comes out of your mouth immediately that happens? The question. Ziana, you are so born again. Aki Mungu surely. Agret, you are so real. Okay, well, yeah. Surely purity. And Purity had raised a comment up here. A happy life is when you find pleasure and joy in everything you do in life. So there is freedom and happiness. Someone distinguished freedom and happiness as freedom is doing doing what you like. Happiness is liking what you do. You get the distinction? Freedom is doing what you like. Happiness is liking what you do. So the language of right and wrong is about truth of the matter. Call a spade, no sugarcoating. A good life is when you're not afraid of yourself. So, surely, hata sikuli leo. So Joy, hai, kwa nini saa hii, Maxine, damn it, those are some of the words that proceeds out of our mouths. Sometimes people may doubt us because sometimes you find that, and we can debate about this, that sometimes when words proceed out of your mouth, they may not be processed. They may not be thought through. Unajua tu ni ile kitu natoka. You just said something. And because you've been around people who say such words, then, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You just find yourself, you just saying, why na? Because you have been used to uttering certain words. But moving on, you find that our concept of ethics have been derived, one, from religions. Christianity has a certain set of values that we are expected to exude as children of God. Philosophies. What is philosophy? Philosophy can be divided into two. There is this philo part. There's the philo and sophia. So that they form the word philosophy. Philosophy majorly means love for wisdom. So what is wisdom according to me? Because what is wisdom is what I will follow, for example. And cultures. And sometimes these matters may infuse debates on topics like abortion, is it right or wrong? Human rights for people who are interested to pursue law, and questions on professional conduct. You remember the question, Tom, ni life, Jehovah. Okay, you remember the questions of CRE. We used to say it's a CRE question 89 in primary school. You find Margaret and Tom fighting. As a Christian, what would you do? And we were so good when responding to those questions, because we were saying, I will tell them not to fight. But the truth is, you be the referee, or you find, nani amenikosea latest. I want to fight against them. Ama unachia mwenye, piganeni, kama ni mimi siwezifanyia hivyo, hata siwezilala kwetu, So what is right? Tupigana hadi mpendane, sometimes putting something on the hand, nasema kama wewe ni mbaya, toa hiyo. And if someone is not removing it, nasema hey, haki, mimi nikifanyia hivyo siwezilala kwetu, siwezilala kwetu, And we used to cheer each other on that. So conduct, what would be our conduct and response in certain situations? So ethics, in terms of moral conduct, is what explains how we behave. Maybe a question of religion, a question of philosophy, and a question of culture. Again, I encourage you, please feel free to continue using the chat function. I'll be keen to check what is happening in that end. So moving on. So there are a number of dilemmas, and I have raised them. So what is right or wrong? And it's really covered in ethics, looking at how would I respond when it comes to certain things that I really need to do. But looking at it in a different way is that you combine profession and ethics, you would see that professional ethics would be now a set of beliefs that a person accepts concerning relationships with colleagues. So that would mean it might be at the point of work, it's colleagues, an employer when you get employed, parents, sometimes guardians, some of us, like myself, who lost some of our parents, it may be that you're dealing with guardians, all of whom are stakeholders in the life of a person. But then professional ethics, they give a certain set of broad principles that are derived in turn to form a spectrum of values. So ethics is a cornerstone of values. But then in terms of ethics, we are going to look at this, and once we are done with this, actually we will be done with the session. When we look at these values, we are going to look at them and then we will be done with the session. So these are some of the things that would characterize ethics, and they would include honesty, integrity, transparency, accountability, confidentiality, objectivity, respectfulness, and obedience to the law. And so again, on our chat box, let's start with the value of honesty. So what do you understand as honesty as a mark of ethics? Anyone can also unmute and speak, but I would also encourage us to use the chat box. Honesty. What is honesty according to you? Being clean and straight to the point. Thank you, Rosiana, Team Rosiana there. Because there's a way we can elaborate or talk about something. But then, since seems I have certain cards that I have hidden, if I am not honest, I breach your trust. Imagine having a conversation with someone and probably you just confide. Kuna ile kitu najua truth is a secret. I would not want to release this one. Then they move on and then go talk about what you have discussed before. So that something that you thought is only one person who knows, you find that a lot of people know about that. How do you normally feel? Betrayed. It's what you would call betrayal in the city. You feel betrayed, you feel cheated. What do you do about that relationship? You don't want to have any dealings with such a relationship. So honesty is very key. But we move on looking at some of your responses, and thank you for bringing them on. Someone else, let me just go back a little. There is Tom, always being truthful. So again, when we talk about always being truthful, is asking, so what is truth? We know even in courts of law, someone will go and pick the Bible and say, I will say the truth and nothing but the truth. I'm a pick Bible. Immediately after that, picking the word of God and swearing by it, saying something contrary to, to what they believe in and what they are saying. It's a question of honesty. So it would mean always being truthful. Then Sandra is saying, honesty is an act of telling the truth, whether good or bad. You know, as human beings, we prefer, just being told the nice things. You are a good person, you have done 1, 2, 3 things. But honesty would also mean whether anything is good or bad. And actually, the response by Sandra is even putting us into the second issue on ethics about integrity. Because integrity means, even if it pains you, nakwambia, you've not done well here. You have not done well. I don't know how many people are fans of Maria. I watch Maria, the local shop, the local soap. So if I know there are some people, I can give some of the illustrations. Because soaps, of course, they center around honesty, deception, and property, and the gaps, the rich, and the poor. You can see some of these things that even arise out of this, If anyone follows that, there's one of the characters who is a lady who up to this time has said that they are pregnant. Her name is Maggie, you know, and the guy called Silas is now can't move on with life because he thinks that he has impregnated the lady, and the lady on the other side wants to take advantage of the guy. Honesty, not telling the truth. So moving from Sandra and coming to Kiptor, it's always telling the truth. Ken Charlo, saying only the truth, even when it pains. Mulavu, speaking the truth, even when it's easier to lie. What? In Kali. What? Because you don't need a skill to lie. It comes so naturally. comes out so naturally, you know. It's so natural. But for the truth, you know, when you know, again, sorry for alluding much of what happened to my life when I was growing up. We would go for firewood in the forest, and so because we are so many boys, we want to go swimming. We used to have our own swimming pools in the village. So you go swimming the whole day, and you remember you're supposed to go with firewood at home. Kutoka kwa swimming unajipaka makuni, I mean making your skin look so bad, and then you just cut a tree. You know it's bad to deforest, but you cut a tree and you go home, say akukuwa na kuni nikaona nikate hii, and the firewood cannot be used immediately because you know it can't be useful. So just lying, and so lying is normally convenient for the time, but with time you find you will go, because you must be very smart. You must be a very smart liar if you want to go that process of lying. Salaton, kusema ukweli, that's true. Moving down to other comments. Margaret, I hope it's Charono or Harono, I don't know. What if you are found in this situation? What will you do if a doctor asks you to save between your wife or unborn child? This is one of the ethical dilemmas that I had. Margaret, you want to tell me the right pronunciation of your name?
Yes.
What's the right pronunciation? Harono.
Harono.
All right, thank you. Asante. So Margaret is asking, if a doctor asks you to save between your wife or unborn child. Dilemma. Tom, save the wife. You can have children with her. You guys are so real. Save the wife, you can still have children with her. Cindy, honesty is being trustworthy and loyal. That's true. Tom, Binti Kicha, I'm not alone. Shout out to you, Salaton. Purity, honesty is is where your conscience pushes you to tell the truth no matter the consequences. So here, save the wife, you'll get more kids. You get more kids. You know, you might decide to save the wife, and then you live with guilt. I don't have an answer to this. It's really an ethical dilemma. Binti Kicha, of course, I'm not alone. Honesty is, I've read the comment by Purity. Well, I think that's much about honesty. Integrity. Anyone quickly? What is an integrity? Doing the right thing when no one is watching. Spot on, Joy. Spot on. Doing the right thing when no one is watching. Anyone else? Type there. Can give examples. Integrity. And I'll be reading your chat, but let me keep explaining again because we also need to observe time. Our time is almost done. It's interesting. This conversation can be so interesting and we don't get to see how time is going. Integrity is taken from the term integer. Integers, we did integers in Form 1, and integers are, anyone? Integers are type or shout? What are integers? Joy? Breaking. Anyone type or shout? Joy, you're breaking. I hope I'm not the only one struggling to hear her. Numbers, Munywa?
Whole numbers.
Whole numbers, certainly, whole numbers. So integrity is a concept of being whole. You know, like Galatians talks about the fruit of the Spirit. So that if you lack, say, self-control or gentleness, then you don't have the fruit because it's one. It's one. It's one fruit made of all those components. So integrity is an aspect of being whole. And as Joy says, is when no one is watching, then you are able to stand by that. What else would one say is integrity? Thanks, Kelly. Quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. Thank you for adding the term strong. Cindy, the quality of being honest and having strong principles. Nani anakopi mwingine between the two? OP, having strong moral principles. People are copying each other. Are you in the same place? Quality of being honest, having strong moral principles. We move on. Transparency is just being transparent. For example, I am in one of the hotels in Westlands, and you can see this is a window, and anyone on the other side can be able to see what I am doing here. The same case, I can just look out and see really what is happening. So transparency is really, in short, having nothing to hide. Confidentiality, you know, especially when you sometimes getting to work or even family matters, there are those affairs you don't display in the public, you know. There's certain things that need to be kept within the family. Going to say, you know, my brother, we are anafanya something and asusu, you know, kwa kitanda, and probably they are 15 years or 18 years, at a 90, you know, there are certain things that would be not, may not be bad, but it's also not useful for everyone to know. Objectivity, concept of being objective is that you are dealing with the matter at hand. You're not looking, you're logical, not being emotive when making decisions. Respectfulness is an aspect of ethics, respectfulness or obedience, and obedience to the law. I mean, this is what the law says, and you get to do that. Any question before we wrap up? This is my very last slide. We have about 8 minutes. Any question before I tell you this concept? Probably some of you know the concept of who cares for the new millennium. Any question? Raise up your hand and I will be able to see. Additionally, you can still type. Any question on this topic as we go towards finishing? Apart from the one we had, that was a serious one. Aha. Please help me pronounce this name, D-U-A-N-E, unmute and pronounce it. Anyone who knows how to pronounce, especially the owner of the name?
It's Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Yes.
Excellent. Do you think law is an ethical career? You know, my wife is a lawyer, by the way. Let me make that that statement early enough. It depends. Sorry, ethics depends. Sometimes we will get to a place, someone asks you, what is the capital city of Kenya? The answer is, depends. Whether it's Nairobi or Kisumu, wherever you are, you can term it as a capital city. It is an ethical career. I know certain institutions that are geared towards offering pro bono services to people who cannot access justice. And you can check this online. Quickly, I remember International Justice Mission. So there is also the Kenya Christians Professionals Fellowship, and the current chair of the Kenya Christian Professional Fellowship, KCPF, is a lawyer. His name is Charles Kanjama, one of the renowned lawyers. And what do they do? There's been a motion recently on some bill on Senate. Some of you might have seen that going around. And so there has been that bill. And you see, if it's a bill, that bill is a legal issue. A legal issue, if it has issues that Christians need to come up on, because there are questions of legalizing abortion, it's best handled by a lawyer. So we cannot term that the entire process is unethical. There are questions of conveyancing. For example, when you want to buy land, when you want to buy buildings, property, when you want to get into MOUs, you need contracts so that someone does not say, no, this was not the agreement. Some of you may have seen the expose on Banda homes, for example. People who invested a lot of their money in Banda homes gave well, in terms of millions, up to 4 million, 5 million, but then you go and find that even at the basic level, the house has not moved. You need a lawyer, to ensure that you are not duped. So it's ethical, only that some people, even being a pastor, we have people who have abused those positions, Kukwela Kondo and such like things, and stealing money from the church, for example, lack of proper administration, lack of accountability, which we have raised as a question of ethics. So it's an ethical career. It just depends on how you look at it. And again, work can be looked as a calling. You have a calling. You feel I'm not just getting to this for the sake of it. It's a calling that I have. There's someone who had raised their hand. Sorry, I lost that. I hope, Joanne, I have answered your question. Someone raised their hand. I can see it got lost. Who was that? Kindly, you can raise it again or just unmute and ask the question. Thank you, Dwayne. Someone had raised their hand. Harono. Ukona question stuff? I hope this one is simple. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Minister.
Yes.
Okay, this is the question. So what if you're a lawyer and your son, one of your son has committed murder, and the consequence of murder, maybe if you're found guilty of murder, then you're sentenced to death. And it's your son has committed murder. Will you allow your son to be sentenced to death?
You see, you can make a decision whether to represent your son or not. Because do you know even lawyers have lawyers? Interesting to find. You find a certain lawyer is sued, but they can't represent themselves. They hire another lawyer. I'm mentioning some of these things because they're in the public domain. One of the lawyers is a senator. I see we have 3 minutes. One of the lawyers is a senator who I will not mention, but was involved in a divorce case, and because getting property and such like things. So you find that they wouldn't represent themselves. They represented someone else. But again, a very hard statement to say is that when we get to heaven, a family will not be called to give an account. It's really every individual. Because I have a daughter, but it's upon her to take care of her decisions. But when she gets into a position where she can make decisions, it's upon her to decide whether she wants to follow Christ. We've had issues where even people who advocate for salvation, majorly in churches and evangelists, having their children who I mean, they are not doing well in terms of morals, in terms of conduct. It's questionable, but you find, I mean, for the father or the mother who is a pastor, I mean, life must just move on. We have children of lawyers as well being found in the wrong. During this partial lockdown, you also noted there were people in Kilimani having fun. So when it was time for them to go home, their mother, who worked, I think, in a hospital, sent an ambulance to pick them. So I mean, is it, you know, because you would choose where, how does one want to operate? One of the people who challenged me is called Justice Mongo. Justice Mongo is a judge with the High Court. He said he has a lot of influence, but even for his children, he cannot talk to someone to give them jobs. Tells them, prepare your CV, apply kama kila mtu, and if you get it, sawa. If you don't, sawa. So that's quite a thin line. And Purity says when it comes to blood relations, people these people. I don't know who you refer to as these people. Yes, people are a priority, but then you also want to see. Would it be easier for someone else to represent? Because lawyers say they don't defend; they just represent. Remember sometimes when it comes to litigation, that's matters in court, the lawyer is at work, kwa kazi, when it gets to your kids. So, you know, that's a dilemma there. Purity, you want to say something?
Yeah, saying when it comes to your kids, especially a parent, like that woman who carried
got an ambulance to carry the people.
An ambulance to get their child. Yeah, the child. You see, this is your blood, especially for a mother. This is your blood. You give birth to this child. You know the pain of how you raise this child. That's why even if you're a pastor and your daughter becomes something unpleasant like a video vixen or a secular singer, you don't disown them. This is your child. This is your blood. So all you do is just guide them to the way you want them to go.
Sure.
When they get older, the Bible says they shall still come back and return, but do your part as a parent. Because you are like the role model, you are like the God of this child. So do your part as a parent, protect them, take care of them. When now they go overboard, you just let them
make their own decisions.
Go, let them be. But at the end of the day, if you taught them the right way, they'll still come back to.
Excellent. I agree. You know, it should be preventive measures, not curative measures. That's how we should look at it. Finally, just allow me 1 minute for conclusion, because we are still going to meet shortly. Who cares for the new millennium? It's a question of who should. Well, it is a story on Half a Day and Other Stories I read some times back. I don't have time to go into details of why this Ethiopian writer would talk about a new millennium. So because even people are not even aware, Ethiopia, of course, you know, it's a bit behind, but looks more fictional, but reflects the society. That some society is wanting of people who are good, who are ethically firm, and who would stand. As you process you're going to campus, it's a journey on itself, and it can either break you or make you. A decision is majorly upon yourself, because I know people who have messed up their lives in campus. I also know people who have gotten their lives strengthened, and even their faith while in campus. It's a call for everyone to stand firm wherever we are, whoever we interact with, and I'll just conclude with the verse in Matthew, letting our yes be yes and our no be no. We'll do a recap when we come to the other session. But really, I want to thank you as I invite Hilary. I want to thank you for being active and making this more engaging. I think I've even learned more than I had even prepared. So thank you for your participation. It's now 1:03. I want to give it back to Hilary. Do we have him here? Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
We lost you. I can hear you now. Hilary. Okay. Permit me.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, you can hear me finally.
Yes, yes.
I was saying I'm having a difficult time with the internet. I don't know what's happening today. But I believe I love the conversations. I love the talking, and I believe you're going to have more. So even as we prepare for the next session, just come with open minds. I think we will learn more. Yeah, and I'll work on my end here on the computer and everything. So thank you so much, Francis.
Karibu, my pleasure.
Yes, asante sana. So I believe we are going to meet at 1:30 for the next session. Yeah, but I think we should. Yeah, I think we should keep on the conversations. They're really nice. They're really actually eye-opening, and the questions being asked are quite difficult per se. I would say. Yeah, but again, just on the professional ethics, you will realize that even as you go to your to campus, to every unit that you're going to take, there'll be a bit of ethics. I believe so. It doesn't matter the kind of field you're going in, be it in medicine, engineering, teaching, law. There'll be ethics that you have to learn. So yes, we should keep our eyes open, should keep our minds open, and then also just be ready to receive whatever that you're being taught like today. So thank you so much, you guys, and thank you, Francis. Yeah, so I think we will end there, and then we will meet at 1:30 for the final session with him.
Same link?
Sawa. I'll just share the link with you.
It's a different one, eh?
Yes. So today we had scheduled some links, so I'll just share with you.
Great.
Sawa. Thanks. Asante sana. So guys, go have your lunch, have your short break, take your power nap. At 1:30 we meet, and then we finish. Sawa. Super. So I believe we are free to leave.
Sawa. Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
Yes, Francis.